LaTisha Scott, Nell Fletcher, and Kimmi Scott quickly turned into something far more intense than anyone expected. Known for usually staying calm, Tisha and Nell reached a breaking point and decided to confront Kimmi directly, bringing up behaviors they had been quietly observing for a long time. What started as a simple conversation shifted almost instantly when Kimmi responded with sarcasm and defensiveness, setting off a chain reaction that escalated into a heated exchange filled with tension, accusations, and emotional reactions. Both Tisha and Nell stood firm, clearly expressing that they were no longer willing to ignore manipulation or allow their words to be twisted, while Kimmi attempted to deflect, deny, and reposition herself as misunderstood. However, this time her usual approach didn't seem to work, as the confrontation felt more like a strategic and psychological battle rather than just an argument. The situation became even more layered when Shari was brought into the discussion, reminding everyone of the warnings she had given in the past, which many had previously dismissed, but were now starting to feel accurate. As emotions intensified, the conversation began to uncover deeper issues, including past tensions, personal struggles, and unresolved conflicts that had been building for years. Other cast members watched closely, some attempting to calm things down, while others unintentionally added to the pressure, making the atmosphere even more charged. Even when moments of calm appeared, they didn't last long, as the discussion continued to circle back to accountability, truth, and trust. By the end, it was clear that this was no longer about a single issue, but about long-standing patterns and shifting dynamics within the group, leaving everyone questioning what would happen next, whether Kimmi could recover from the situation, and whether Melody had been right all along. As the moment settled, the silence in the room said more than the shouting ever could. No one rushed to fix things and no quick apologies followed, just lingering tension and unspoken thoughts hanging in the air. LaTisha Scott and Nell Fletcher remained composed, but their message had already been delivered loud and clear. They were no longer willing to stay quiet or tolerate behavior that felt manipulative or dismissive. On the other side, Kimmi Scott seemed to realize that this situation was different from anything before. The usual ways of shifting blame or softening the narrative were no longer working, and for the first time, she appeared to be facing real pressure to reflect on how her actions were being perceived. Meanwhile, the presence of Shari continued to loom over the situation, even when she wasn't directly involved in the moment. Her past warnings now felt impossible to ignore, and it changed how everyone viewed what had just happened. What once seemed like isolated misunderstandings now looked more like a pattern that had finally been exposed. That realization didn't just affect Kimmi, it shifted the entire group dynamic, forcing everyone to reconsider their roles, their alliances, and even their silence in previous situations. As the group slowly moved on from that intense exchange, it was clear that nothing would go back to how it was before. Conversations would carry more weight, trusts would be harder to rebuild, and every interaction moving forward would be viewed through a new lens. The confrontation had opened the door to deeper truths, but it also created distance that wouldn't be easy to close. Now, the real question isn't just who was right or wrong in that moment, it's whether these relationships can survive the level of honesty that has finally come to light, or if this was the beginning of an even bigger divide that will continue to unfold. The aftermath didn't bring closure, it brought clarity, and not the kind anyone was ready for. The group may have physically moved on from that moment, but emotionally, everything was still very much unresolved. LaTisha Scott and Nell Fletcher had drawn a line that couldn't be erased, and whether anyone agreed with their approach or not, they had shifted the tone of every future interaction. There was now an expectation of honesty, a demand for accountability, and a clear message that silence would no longer be an option when something felt off. For Kimmi Scott, the pressure didn't end when the conversation did. If anything, it intensified. Every look, every comment, and every reaction from the group carried a new level of scrutiny. The space that once allowed her to navigate situations more freely now felt tighter, more watchful. Whether she chose to reflect, respond, or push back even harder remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: she could no longer rely on the same strategies without being challenged. At the same time, Melody Shari's earlier observations continued to echo through the group, almost like a reminder that some truths don't disappear just because they're ignored. Her perspective, once questioned or even dismissed, was now being revisited with fresh eyes. And that shift didn't just validate her, it forced others to examine their own roles in allowing certain patterns to continue for as long as they did. As conversations resumed in the days that followed, there was a noticeable change in energy. Interactions felt more careful, more intentional, but also more fragile. Trust had been shaken, and rebuilding it would take more than surface-level apologies or temporary peace. Beneath every exchange was an unspoken awareness that anything left unsaid could easily resurface again, stronger than before. What made the situation even more complex was the quiet divide forming within the group. Some leaned towards understanding Tisha and Nell's decision to speak up, seeing it as necessary and overdue. Others questioned the timing, the delivery, or even the intention behind it. And in the middle of it all was Kimmi, navigating not just the confrontation itself, but the shifting perceptions of everyone around her. In the bigger picture, this moment felt like a turning point, not just for one relationship, but for the entire group dynamic. The balance had changed. The comfort of avoiding difficult conversations was gone, replaced with a new reality where everything could be questioned, challenged, and brought into the open. And now, moving forward, every gathering, every discussion, and every interaction carries a new weight. Because once truth, real or perceived, is brought to the surface like this, there's no going back to pretending everything is fine. The only way forward is through it. And whether that leads to healing or even deeper division is something that's still unfolding, one conversation at a time.